but there's a writer's room somewhere. And,
somewhere.
Yeah, and in that writer's room, they are figuring out these seasonal arcs that are they're just gobsmacking. Like, for instance, remember for a moment there, it was very plausible that he was going to win the election, but start serving in prison.
Hi, everyone. It's Nicolle Wallace from Deadline White House. I'm here with a new project. It's called The Best People with Nicolle Wallace. The best people are accomplished, but they're also accessible. And here at The Best People, I'm going to share them with all of you. I'm so excited to do that. The first person that I reached out to is the person who hosts my most favorite podcast, Smartless. But when I asked Jason Bateman for advice about how to podcast, he said, it's called Smartless for a reason. I don't have any advice. But he did agree to talk to me, which is very good news because he has a huge political brain and watches more MSNBC than I do, on top of being an award-winning actor and director. So this is The Best People, and this is Jason Bateman.
I want to be that person just off your camera so bad on that show. The big steady cam, tilt down. It's also exciting. I'm very addicted to your show. Very big fan. Very excited to be here.
Oh, you're so nice. I'm very addicted to Smartless in this thing. I really believe in never meeting your heroes. It can only go downhill. I don't ever do it. Steph Curry is my hero. I hope to never meet him. If I saw him in an airport, I'd run.
No,
and you guys
he is run to him. He could not be sweeter.
He's my hero. I love Shohei Ohtani. I feel like I don't think we run in the same circles. I don't know that I'd run into him, but I really try to never meet my hero. Never. I don't know if that's getting old. And I love you guys. I really thought I was rocking COVID. I was I'm eating green soup. I'm nailing third grade. I was teaching my son third grade. I was anchoring out of the basement and the numbers were up. And I started listening to Smartless and I would laugh until I cried. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably not okay if these guys are making me cry.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would just weep. You'd be talking to, I don't know, it wasn't even COVID anymore. And I'd still cry. Courtney Cox plays the piano. And I didn't know any of you. And I was just weeping. I'm like, that's so beautiful. And I think I tapped into my own instability and isolation from how in love I was with you guys on Smartless.
Yeah, well, thank you. It wasn't some necessary nonsense during that really kind of fraught period. And we were really surprised that people were listening to us because it was just a selfish sort of thing for us to kind of stay in contact when you couldn't be in physical contact or proximity. And so it was kind of this Zoom that turned into, something to monetize, as Sean is so good at doing. He's like, whoa, just guys, let me have my guys just run some numbers because this is fun and everything, but I think we could make some money. I was like, all right. So yeah, that was a big shocker and remains a big shocker. We thought it was all going to go away after COVID and we'd get back to our lives of not doing it and actually seeing each other in person. And there was such an audience there by the time COVID was done. And we were getting so many flattering incoming calls to talk to people that we would never speak to. To your point about Shohei Ohtani or Steph Curry, you're not going to bump into those people. It's possible to talk to folks that you can really get a lot smarter speaking to. And unless you're trapped in an elevator, they're not going to speak to you. So it's our little 1 hour elevator breakdown.
Why did you think in the beginning that someone would listen to 45 minutes of, the thing about cable is you're trying to be so efficient with words and time under this sort of hypothesis that people are busy and it's so competitive. But people are really drawn to these really intimate, really unscripted, really long conversations. And as someone sort of on the other end of that medium, making my first foray into this one, that in and of itself is a delicious and wonderful, affirming reality about what people will listen to.
Well, first, obviously, we did not think anyone was going to listen and that no one really needed to listen because, it costs next to nothing to put one of these things up. I mean, you can go down to the Apple store and get a podcast mic and stick it in your laptop. That's all we do, really. It's just a Zoom. The fact that people did check us out, probably because, the first wave of guests were just some of our fancy friends that were nice enough to say yes. And then I guess somewhere through that sample size, people kind of liked the ability to go about their day and multitask and kind of half listen to us, because we are not journalists. We don't claim to know much about anything and are happy to sit there and have smarter people answer our questions that are really coming from a layman's point of view. And he's now since become a controversial figure, but Charlie Rose is somebody that I watched every single episode he ever did for no other reason than he's us, as far as like being a non-expert in most of the industries and experts that he had on his show. And he would just basically, well, explain that to me, why are you the king of drywall? Why were you drawn to sheetrock, and what is it that makes it such a big industry? And like, that's a fascinating to just be kind of a common person that is curious about the industry that might live right next door to you. So, and you have, one of the reasons I love your show is you have people skills and you're able to listen and talk, and you never get the sense that you're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can go to the next question on your buck slip there. You're listening to them and the audience is listening as well. And so you are probably going to arrive at the same question the audience has if you take the same position the audience has, which is just listening. You're not prepared, hopefully. The other two on our show are not. That was part of the design. That's to have a surprise guest that was really selfishly so that the other two don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But it also affords them the same perspective as the audience, that they're just listening. They don't have anything loaded. And the next question is just going to simply be prompted by being a part of the conversation.
And listening. I mean, I think that's it. And I think that goes beyond what either of us does. Like, I think that's the political answer. And there's something like perversely brilliant about Trump hearing anger and then feeding it back to voters. One of his political gifts is like he hears the grievance and then he makes it clear to his voters that he hears them.
Right. And you're implying, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that there's a baked in level of cynicism there and manipulation and opportunity to tap into a large group of people that are aggrieved and that, their votes count the same. So let's go after them because there's a lot of people that are pissed off. I can't begrudge them that because that's kind of the game of politics.
Yeah.
But once you're elected, it's like, can we now actually help the country instead of continuing the cynicism and trying to put more people into, is basically creating a larger group of people aggrieved with his policies and then somehow convincing him that, I know I'm the arsonist, but trust me, I'll be a firefighter soon. I don't know how he's able to do both.
But I think politics is like Nordstrom, right? Like the customer's always right. I worked at Nordstrom 1 year in college and people would return things that were 11 years old and stained. And I remember going to a manager, I'm like, you're going to take that skirt back? And they're like, yep, we take back any, so the voter's always right. But I think that to the degree that voters were saying something about Biden's age or about inflation or about the democracy, instead of trying to change what they were saying, I think people are too slow to not listen to it. But I do think it's still true that people face to face don't hate each other as much as people do online. And so I feel like to the degree that I think we could be okay, I still think it's like going and getting in front of people. I still think the resurgence of if this were political, this is retail politics, right? It is two people talking to each other and listening to each other. I think that's what politics has to go back to. And
but that presupposes that they have access to a speaker from which a bunch of facts are coming. So what do you do about that? Your point about the customer's always right. Well, they're making their right decision on facts that might not be facts. And so what do you do about that? In other words, do you think Trump would have gotten the same number of votes if the people who voted for him had access to or the curiosity to seek out and find the truth? Because they're not getting the truth over on Fox. This $780 some million lawsuit is proof of it. And that was just one issue. So, what do you do about that? Pete Buttigieg.
You're so good. I can't believe you're asking me questions. I wanted to ask you. So this is my thing. This is the thing that keeps me up at night. I think the truth has to be the next moonshot. And I think that all the smartest people in the world, maybe all the fired scientists, have to figure out how to make the truth the thing that's sticky, the thing that goes viral. Like the truth has to be the thing that people are sending around and they're like, look at this when no one's watching. This is the truth about Trump, or this is the truth about.
But who's the arbiter of what is true? I've always fantasized that, that little grade that's on the front of restaurants, A, B, C, or whatever. Like, it would be great if media was forced to have that little bug in the bottom right corner of, just like on MSNBC. During the day, it's news reporting and it's facts, and at night it is opinion. And like that should have its separate letter. No better, no worse, just identifies that, and therefore you can intellectualize the thing that you're talking about, opine on whatever it is, but the same burden is not placed on that reporter in front. And then on Fox, they can go and freestyle if they want. And on MSNBC, you can freestyle if you want. I happen to think, I'm a huge fan, but I happen to think that MSNBC doesn't drift from the truth. They just have this immense amount of really interesting, solid facts to talk about. And so they don't have to freestyle and embellish. So I don't know. I'm talking about Pete Buttigieg. He's been on Fox a bunch of times and is somehow, reaching that audience. I asked him why he's the only one that's really been on there, and why are the politicians not being invited on because Fox is afraid of what they're going to say, or do politicians not want to be on because they don't want to take the heat? Do you know?
I think it's probably a combination of both, but Pete's been going on for years. I remember when I was first dating my husband, we were going to go get something to eat, and he said, no, I can't. We got to stay in. I said, why? He said, there's a Buttigieg town hall on Fox. It's like 2018 or 19. And I was like, we're staying home for that? Like, okay. I mean, it's just like, it's great TV. It's amazing that he does it. And like, he's been doing it for almost 10 years. Like, it's part of who he is. To your point about news and perspective, I think it should go farther. Like, I actually think we should reveal, like almost like a confessional. I worked for George W. Bush. I worked for Dick Cheney. I still like them. I know they did lots of things wrong. I also think that if we're part of our own sort of responsibility for our own credibility, I think putting it all out there and being more transparent. I mean, I love Pete. I love everything that he's doing. And I think that that's not only is that like the right model, I think it's the only model. Like you cannot leave out half of the country, and you don't need to win everybody, but you have to win over some of those folks.
Yeah, but the truth tellers, or whatever book all the facts sit in from day to day, there is no attempt to hide that from the Republican voters.
Yeah.
It's ubiquitous. It is.
I know.
You have to make a real effort to stay insulated from the facts and common sense.
I know.
It's everywhere except
it's insane.
on Fox or Breitbart or whatever the hell the spots are. I was telling my girls in 2020, I was saying, you guys are going to look back. This is the most fascinating year. This is going to be a hard one to beat with COVID and with Jan 6 and the rest. And it just keeps getting more and more interesting. I joked earlier about the Trump show I'm addicted to. I really am fascinated. I can't stop watching the things that he does and the things that he says, and marry that to the fact that there are 80-some million people that would vote again for him tomorrow. Is just a social phenomenon, a political phenomenon that I just can't get my head around. And I don't want to ignore it. We're all neighbors. We all share this country together. And so I want to understand it. And I know that there's genuine dissatisfaction with their standing in life or the system and whatnot. So that's legit. I'm sensitive to that. I respect that. But whatever section there is that is kind of doing it just to stick it to the libs, it's not schadenfreude, but I am curious to see what they're going to do when, eggs keep going up and gas keeps going up. And again, I'm not wishing harm on anyone, but it's tragic that I think the people who are least equipped to bear what the Trump administration is going to yield are a lot of the folks that voted for him. And that's really freaking sad.
Again, I don't wish any person or business financial harm, but in some ways, the market reaction brought new people to the fight. And I think that's a
look at
good
what happened to
thing.
Elon Musk's bottom line.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Jesus Christ.
Right. And so I don't wish anyone financial ruin. I don't wish anyone, and I welcome them to the effort to not have the whole country sort of held hostage to the whims of Trump. I mean, the tariff thing, isn't even a thing. There aren't any. There are no deals. They're not on. They're not off. They're just like whatever he wakes up and does.
And to the extent there are, you got to eat it, because you made so much the last few years. Like, what?
But it might take something that he can't spin his way out of to make everybody understand.
Right. And that's unfortunate that there's only one way that medicine's going to go down or the lesson's going to be absorbed. Got to have to learn the lesson the hard way. Again, to my point, that's going to be a painful lesson for mostly the people that voted for him.
Yeah.
And that's tragic. But I guess it's the only way to break the fever, perhaps.
We're going to take a quick break right here. When we come back, we'll have more with Jason Bateman. Back in a moment. I think that what makes the Trump story so amazing is nobody knows what's going to happen next. I mean, the people in his cabinet don't seem to know what's happening next. It's crazy.
But there's a writer's room somewhere. Yeah, and in that writer's room, they are figuring out these seasonal arcs that are they're just gobsmacking. And somehow they build to these great, cliffhangers too that are kind of like, well, that's like jumping the shark. Like, for instance, remember for a moment there, it was very plausible that he was going to win the election, but start serving in prison. Like you would write
was
that
it crazy?
Maybe. Yeah. That would be a jump the shark moment. But no, actually everything was built towards that legitimately can happen. And people are trying to figure out the apparatus to get classified documents to him, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, that's just a show I can't stop watching because he keeps outdoing himself and doubling and tripling down. And it's not for show. It's actually a reasonable escalation based on what just happened last. It's like it's really happening.
Does it change your industry at all when the real world is so batshit crazy? Does it make people think, oh, this couldn't happen when the real world keeps defying that frame of this couldn't happen?
Well, there's plenty of projects. I've been involved with at least two of them that are directly related to key figures in his administration that I have started developing, but then backed away because there's no way you can do that because those are still active storylines. And by the time you're done shooting it, the ending may have been written and we won't have it, in the show.
Yeah.
So, it's the notion of what is plausible and possible in the political world. I think the writers' rooms are having difficulty imagining it, even in a fictional setting, if you were to just have a fictional administration, because, I think most of us come off the car lot with a standard feature of shame and an ability to become embarrassed. And that is, that's not built into our systems of defense. You can't assume that somebody is going to drive right through shamelessness. And he does, and he is. And so we're constantly on our heels because we're surprised.
I think it's amazing that people haven't adapted. Because to your point, he has no shame. He has three impulses: greed, winning, and I don't even know what the third would be. And this is on us too. We still cover him like they're playing 3D chess. They're always playing whack-a-mole, always.
Well, I think it's just a question of the problem is that nothing matters because no one's listening.
Maybe.
The MAGA folks aren't watching MSNBC or reading the New York Times, where just one of the really salient points would be, why would this guy be slashing and burning and cutting all the waste and abuse and all that stuff? And then at the other side of his mouth, say, I want a $45 million birthday parade. Like it's just they're at odds with
And a
one another.
$400 million jet.
Exactly. That could have filled with bugs, listening devices, and on and on and on. But like, you wouldn't even waste your time reporting that because it's not going to move the dial, because in the fire hose, you're not even going to hear it or see it. And so what do? People like yourself, you can't stop reporting the news, but like, who are we talking to?
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever see a day, and I know this is kind of a third rail for politics, but at what point, if ever, do you think the story would change from reporting on the outrageousness of Trump and his actions, his decisions, his words, and instead move to the people that have voted for him twice? And I know that goes back to the whole story of deplorables, and like as soon as that happened, everyone just backed off and don't ever talk bad about, America and the 80 million. But he's never changed. Like, he's always been the same. He didn't do a 180 and dupe everybody when he got to the White House. It's the people that have put him there and then put him there again that really deserve a great deal of responsibility and a talking to. I'm sorry. And I say that with love. They are our neighbors, as I said before. And I know that they are, deservedly aggrieved and whatnot. But there's another way to do it. There's somebody else in the Republican Party that can look after your issues. If it makes you sick to vote for a Democrat, great, vote for a Republican. Tons of my friends are Republican. Like, I have no issues with Republicans. It's this extra step that I think is so unnecessary to follow blindly.
Yeah. I mean, I started out covering the Trump voters because from our end, we kind of missed them. And I covered people who'd voted for Obama at least once or twice, or Clinton, and then voted for Trump. It's everything we've been talking about. They either don't believe the bad things, they think Democrats are worse, they found something they really didn't like about Biden and then Harris.
I was at some fancy Hollywood thingy, and
tell
Rahm
us about
Emanuel
a fancy Hollywood thing.
It's boring as you can imagine.
No, this is boring. Tell me a fancy Hollywood story.
Well, but I only to bring it back to politics, which was that Rahm Emanuel was there, and as was Ari, and I said to Ari, I hear that Rahm is going to run, and Ari gave beautifully kind of non-committal kind of grin or whatever. But it's now since become more public that Rahm might be one of the people to run. And I got really excited about that because, like yourself, he's been uniquely accessed to, these places of this access in there and the knowledge and being chief of staff and ambassador to Japan and mayor and whatnot. And so anyway, I think he'd be a really exciting candidate. But then I said to somebody, and somebody said, oh, no, he'll never win. He's Jewish. And like, I'm a guy who lives in Los Angeles.
Trump's a felon. We have to stop with that.
But then I started thinking, and Pete Buttigieg can't win because he's gay. And I started thinking, well, am I just in such an LA bubble that I just can't imagine that would be a barrier to somebody voting for someone, or that somebody is black, or that somebody is a woman, and then I started thinking, and I'm going to ask you, to the extent you're comfortable answering it, if you're an independent voter or somebody that's kind of on the border between voting Republican or Democrat, is gay, black, Jewish, or female has the best chance of being the next non-white, middle-aged male president? Where do you think the tolerance is?
Well, so I think you go to the battleground states, right? And in Pennsylvania, Shapiro won, I think he won like a huge margin. So those are the same people you have to win over. Right. And he's, very comfortable with his faith, talks about it all the time. Yeah. I think you go to Michigan, huge crossover of Trump voters and Whitmer voters. I mean, there's a woman. I mean, you got to go study the battleground states where women, in Michigan, I think women hold all those top statewide offices. Jocelyn Benson's the Secretary of State. There's a female Attorney General. I mean, you got to go look. I mean,
and
this
Obama's
is the work
already
for
been
David.
President twice.
And Obama's been president twice. So you got to go look behind the tabs. I worry a lot that the Democratic Party will take all the wrong lessons from Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris's defeats, because I think, Whitmer's a great example. I think Nikki Haley was really a threat to Donald Trump, and she was the second highest vote getter. I don't think that's the barrier, and I don't think that was Harris's barrier. I hope not, because you look at in the battleground states that pick presidents, they're open to all sorts of politicians.
Well, it was economy, really, is what the sort of the
That's
exit
what they
thing told.
say.
But now look at it. So, we'll see if that was true.
We'll see. We'll see. Okay, wait, I got to hear more about the fancy Hollywood stuff. I'll tell you, in our world, everyone's talking about Good Night and Good Luck. I know you just saw it.
I just saw it, yeah.
And then Clooney's story of sort of coming out and writing about Biden is everywhere in politics because Jake Tapper has just written about it. So, you talk about how it's hard to not jump the shark in writers' rooms. It seems like some of those moments from history are maybe the way to get at this moment better than anything.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that, his play is so timely and important, no matter what side you're on. I recommend anyone who's in New York to go see it. And what he and Grant Heslov have done with adapting the film and contemporizing it is there's a piece at the end, and I won't ruin it for folks, but there's a bit of a status report, per se, of where we're at, where we've come from, and where we currently are, from McCarthyism to, today. And it just lands the plane in such a heartbreaking slap in the face of, you literally, you see it. And it's upsetting that you sort of, my takeaway at least as I was, drying my tears, that it's been a bit of a frog boil. As much as we are aware of that, of the heat, it did really sneak up on us. And it's not coming. It's here. We're in it.
Yes.
And like all the way up to and including, they're coming for you. Like they're literally knocking on people's doors today and pulling them out and shipping them off, and not just into their home country and get out of here, we don't want to see them, into a maximum security horror den. And so what do we do about that? It's really heartbreaking. And I refuse to believe that even though the folks on, the other side are numb to it. They deeply care about this country, just like we do. We all love the flag. We all love the military. We all care about the health of the country. And I'm just heartbroken that somehow they found a way to shield their eyes and their ears from the current status, and that they could be so helpful to fixing that. It doesn't take a lot of them, just a few of them, to kind of say, you know what, my bad, I'll make a better choice next time. And you don't even need to admit it. I mean, that's why there's a little curtain you can close behind you when you go in the booth, And so, I don't know. It was a great show, and I think he's done a lot for giving voice to a bunch of people like myself that no one really wants to hear from. It's like, okay, Hollywood elite, would tell us how you feel about America, but we don't care about the country any less. And if you can use that uniqueness to speak a little bit clearer, louder to a larger number of people, he's doing that. And this play is an example of that.
I think Trump is aware of how powerful it is. And I think that's why he's so obsessed.
Oh, Trump is uniquely aware of what George is doing. And it's
correct.
It's a problem. Yeah.
Correct. And I think his attacks on Bruce Springsteen for what he said in Manchester at the end of his concert, his attacking Beyonce. I mean, I actually think...
Well, and that was a chilling thing. Like is that
correct.
Not a precursor for a complete IRS? I mean, he's kind of created the predicate for the IRS going all the way into Beyonce's finances, Springsteen's finances. There's nothing there, but he set up the predicate for it. And now he's just going to make their financial life, miserable and force them to spend a bunch of money to defend themselves.
But the reason and this is where I think so much of what they do is designed to chill, right? They want you to both believe that no one wants to hear from Hollywood elites when Trump is deeply interested in Hollywood elites. And two, they want to make the barrier of entry so high so that it's just not worth it to speak out. And I think that he is acutely aware of how people with large platforms who don't like what he's doing do represent a threat to his political support.
Yeah, but the problem is that somehow those people are still kind of inoculated from that information, those voices, those facts. I don't know how they do it. It is by choice. They are by choice keeping themselves insulated from those facts, or when they do hear them, they are using their intelligence to discount it and somehow feel more intelligent to imagine that there's actually a conspiracy and that there's a deep state and that somehow that's a more complicated thought. And so that makes them feel smarter. It's like, I mean, there's not some big effort to dupe America into thinking that Donald Trump is a bad guy, you know?
Well, I think what's amazing is his family is sort of our original sources. Like the most that most journalists have is the books written by his niece and nephew, Mary and Fred Trump. So to the degree that I know anything about his childhood, it's from reading about them. And to your point, there's so much, original source material. We'll be right back with more of my conversation with Jason Bateman. Stay right here.
It's conversation, it's perspective. It's The Weekend on MSNBC with 3 new dynamic hosts, Jonathan Capehart, Eugene Daniels, and Jackie Alamany. And in the evening, it's The Weekend Prime Time with Ayman Mohadeen, Catherine Rampell, Elise Jordan, and Antonia Hilton. Join them as they offer analysis on the week's most important events and set the agenda for the week ahead. The Weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern and The Weekend Prime Time at 6 p.m. Eastern, Saturdays and Sundays on MSNBC.
Hey everybody, it's Hoda Kotb, and I would love for you to join me for new episodes of my podcast, Making Space. Each week I'm having conversations with authors, actors, speakers, and dear friends of mine, folks who are seeking the truth, compassion, and self-discovery. I promise you will leave these talks stronger and inspired to make space in your own life for growth and change. To start listening, just search Making Space wherever you get your podcasts and follow for new episodes every Wednesday.
It's your girl Kiki, and if you haven't heard my podcast, baby, this is Kiki Palmer, you're missing out. You know I do it all. Acting, singing, hosting, producing. But this podcast right here, this is where I get to be my whole entire self with my people. And that means you. Every week we're hanging out, getting into the juiciest conversations. And trust me when I say the tea is hot and the guests are serving. We're talking entertainers, creators, thought leaders, everybody who's everybody comes through to keep it real with your girl. But this isn't just about me and my guests spilling tea. This is about us, you and me, hanging out every week, getting into everything from career moves to life drama to being a mom. Nothing is off limits. I'm always going to be your girl, Kiki, keeping it 100. So come through and join the conversation. Head over to YouTube if you want to watch the full experience. Or you can subscribe to Baby, This is Kiki Palmer on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. Want it early and ad-free? Join Wondery Plus right now.
I feel like the power of the Murrow story and the facts all being out there is that, I always view our show as like a sports bar, right? Like they have to be open every day. They have to have like the good turkey burger and like the nice fish tacos. It has to be good.
Is Heilman the turkey burger?
Well, yeah, but it has to be open every day. And like, we're not Broadway, right? Like I do not put on Good Night and Good Luck. We are not Clooney, right? We're not Smartless, right? Where we will not make you laugh, but like we're there every day. And when people are ready, when the price of everything is so high that people are like, man, how did we get here? And how do we get out of here? Like, we're just going to be there every day. And so to me, it's like, how do you keep the doors open and keep it straight enough? And then that's why we have all these economists on, like, how do you keep it inviting enough so that when people are ready to come, we're open and we're friendly and like we have a good meal if you haven't eaten yet. The game's on. And it's like, keep it open, keep it friendly, and keep it real so that when people are ready, you're there.
And your group, as you put it, your favorite friends and reporters, or what the phrase is?
Yeah, favorite reporters and friends.
Yeah, it's a great group. So congrats to you and to your team, your staff, and whatever you're doing. You have a great mix of steadies that, that are in there, Heilman included, and McCaskill,
yes.
And the group. And throughout all the shows on MSNBC,
Thank you.
I love it, and I know you guys are probably all going through a weird time. I hope that morale is as high as it deserves to be over there, and you guys keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. You keep doing everything that you're doing. We love all of it. I know you're getting all the buzz. Can you tell us anything about Black Rabbit?
Oh, yeah, I can. Sure. That is That is a limited series that I have coming out on Netflix in September. It's an 8-episode show. Jude Law and I play brothers that run a night spot in the Lower East Side. And the first episode is a break-in at this place, and a couple people get shot, and they steal a bunch of jewelry, and then you flash back 6 months, and you spend a few episodes catching up to that moment, and then you reveal who did it, and then the last 2 episodes are kind of the fallout from that. But it's really, really well done, if I do say so, just because there's so many great people involved with this thing, and I'm super proud of it. I think it's the best thing I've ever done, and I'm just really excited for it to come out. Really, really excited.
And Laura Linney's involved. Everyone loves you and Laura Linney from Ozark.
I brought her in to direct a couple of
Does she
episodes.
Direct? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she did. I finally talked her into doing one on Ozark, and it was one of our best episodes ever. It was the first time she'd ever directed anything.
Which one did she episode?
I forget what it was called, but we get in like this traffic jam at the end, and I just storm out of the car and I walk all huffy towards camera. If people remember that, we get into this big, huge fight. But she directed 2 of these in Black Rabbit, and was just fantastic. And she could have very easily said no, especially once she had done one and she knew how much work it was. But she didn't. She leaned into it and she said, yeah, I'd love to. It's just a few blocks from my house, and let's go to it. And the episodes are incredible. She was awesome.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I went back and watched the first Ozark.
Oh, yeah.
Because I remembered everything there, but I couldn't, like in my brain, I was like, I don't remember how they got there. So I watched the first one.
Oh, wow.
And I forgot the drop. And I like screamed out loud. The death from
that the guy that falls off the building.
Yeah, the lover. And I watched the whole thing, and I don't know if I blocked it out. I don't know. Maybe there's something about how dark it is, and like escaping.
That was a lot
is
of
like
fun.
kind of like in the back of my brain. I'm always like, where would I go? And so I had a whole like really going like from Chicago to, like that part of it really like spoke to me in a different way watching it again.
So there's a body that falls from the 40th floor and hits the pavement.
And like it falls.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to have a dummy do that. I didn't want that to be computer generated. So we dropped a 200-pound dummy from about 300 feet, but we had to put it on cables in case the wind blew it towards me because I was standing pretty close to the landing spot. But then in post-production, the amount of time I spent trying to get the sound right of what a body would sound. I mean, it was a very bleak, dark, some of the stuff we have to go through to get, the authenticity just right. But it was, and then in Black Rabbit, kind of semi-spoiler, there is a body that falls at one point in one of the episodes, and I'm working with the same sound crew, the same mix team, and so we grabbed that file from the first episode of Ozark, and so
this good.
Body drops from not quite as high, so we had to adjust the sound a little bit, but getting that sound just right is dark work, but it's fun.
Well, it's so good, and because he's sleeping with your wife, like the reaction isn't horror. It's like it's just
right, exactly. Yeah, look
what
you
like,
got. Yeah.
Huh. It's so good. And I wonder too, are you totally free from the real world when you're in those moments when you're directing or acting?
Yeah, for sure. Totally different part of the brain. And I truly, truly love doing what I do. The directing a little bit more than the acting, just because you're kind of in charge of what people are hearing and seeing and thinking, hopefully. Whereas with the acting, you're just kind of responsible for your one character. And I don't mean to imply that people that are actors are doing easy work and directors are doing hard work. It's many more levers that you're obligated to know about and prepare for, but also have the privilege to participate in. And so I love it just because it's harder, and it kind of calls on all the things that I've kind of been trying to absorb since I started when I was a little kid.
And I know even though all of your co-anchors, you guys give each other so much shit, it's clear that your sort of longevity as an actor also fuels all the respect you garner as a director. I mean, it feels like it's very hard for you guys to give each other any compliments, but even like a person that doesn't know any of you can feel that come through and attach to you?
What, that there is a begrudging sort of respect for one another?
Respect. That like it is
sure.
clear that like because you have, played such iconic roles. That, I mean, my son knows Arrested Development. He's 13. Like there's no reason for him, like it's like the things you've done have different lives.
Yeah.
But do you think that coming to directing, I mean, you've always directed and acted, but does that make it something that is a faster line to having actors respect you, that you feel their pain?
Perhaps. I mean, maybe at a minimum, they can assume that the direction from the director is going to be a little bit more actor friendly, because it is a difficult thing to try to figure out how to speak actor. When somebody is doing a scene where they're having to maybe play the emotion of jealousy, and they're just, it's coming across more as paranoia as opposed to jealousy. And so what word would you say to an actor to get that performance? It's because we're all crazy. I mean, I'm nuts. We're pretending to be other people. It's a weird thing. So it is nice for crazy to talk to crazy. But you're right. Me and Will and Sean, we do give each other a lot of shit, but there is a deep amount of respect for one another. Will just did this really, really cool, tough, dramatic, and comedic movie that he wrote that Bradley Cooper just directed, who's an incredible director. Talk about an actor-director. I mean, he's, I think, one of our finest directors. And so he just directed that. And so Will's got that coming out. I don't want to jinx anything, but there's a good shot. There's going to be nominations for that film. So Will's got all the respect in the world I could give. And Sean, when he did Goodnight Oscar, which was a play on Broadway last year that he won a Tony for, when Will and I went and saw that, Sean's a classically trained pianist, and we'd never really seen him play piano. And he plays Rhapsody in Blue at the end of that thing for 10 minutes by himself in the middle of the stage on this grand piano. And then the curtain comes down, and Will and I are crying. I looked at Will. I said, "Well, he's just ruined the podcast, because now we can't make fun of him anymore. We got too much respect for him." It was really, really amazing. So they're really special guys, and they're very, very good at what they do. But you wouldn't know that, because they like to play dumb a lot. And I hope if we do anything well, it's that we're just kind of just playing grab ass and trying to get on with it and ask some decent questions as the sort of common folks that we are.
I mean, what you guys model in terms of friendship and connection, as busy as you all are, as successful as you all are, is really, I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not unique. We all have really close friends. We're fortunate that we get to do it in front of a microphone and bring on people that, as I said earlier, wouldn't normally get a chance to talk to. And the fact that that's also interesting to the people that listen to us is just really fortunate. So we get to keep doing it, hopefully,
I love it. I hope you guys do it for a very long time.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. It truly is a pleasure to meet you, and hope to do so in person someday.
It's such a privilege. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nicolle.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to The Best People. Be sure to subscribe to MSNBC Premium on Apple Podcasts to get this and other MSNBC podcasts ad-free. As a subscriber, you'll also get exclusive bonus content that we're excited to share with you later in this series. The Best People is produced by Vicky Vergolina and senior producer Lisa Ferry, with additional support from Max Jacobs and Ann Gimbel. Our audio engineers are Bob Mallory and Katie Lau, and Bryson Barnes is the head of audio production. Pat Berkey is our senior executive producer of Deadline White House. Aisha Turner is the executive producer of MSNBC Audio. Remember to search for The Best People with Nicolle Wallace wherever you get your podcasts, and follow the whole series.
Introducing The Weeknight on MSNBC. Join hosts Alicia Menendez, Michael Steele, and Simone Sanders Townsend for a spirited conversation challenging each other and our leaders about the biggest issues of the day.
It's about knowing what you are for, who you are for.
That's what politics is about, is engagement.
We are going to dive deeper into the legal side of today's breaking news.
The Weeknight, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern on MSNBC.